Hello, this is Maciej Mikos welcoming you to World Talks, where every word matters. Leaders of Russia and China are meeting in Kazakhstan to take part in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. To talk about the importance of this annual meeting in Astana and its consequences for global politics, we're joined by Teivo Teivainen, a world politics professor from the University of Helsinki. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Wonderful to be here again in your studio.
Thank you for accepting our invitation then. So to start, how important is CEO and what are its goals?
Well, it's one of the organizations that was established around the same time when the idea of BRICS started to emerge at the beginning of this millennium as a sort of informal, non-decision-making platform for what was originally called the Shanghai Five, and today it has expanded, consists mostly of countries that have Stan in their name, plus China and Russia, Iran and India. And it's one of the ways through which Russia and China try to build a network countering the geopolitical West.
Right, but while BRICS is mainly focused on economic issues, I guess SCO puts more emphasis on security issues. Now, many countries of the global south take part in these talks with SCO. But how do they view the Chinese-Russian narrative of rhetoric on changing the current world order?
Well, like in some other organizations, there are differences. Countries like India, whose prime minister seems not to participate in this meeting in Kazakhstan starting today, is trying to, on the one hand, be in good terms both with India, with Russia, and also with China. It has many security problems with China, and it's not likely to take a complete side between China, Russia on the other hand, and geopolitical West. And there are many other countries trying to balance a little bit like this. Pakistan is one example, participating also in the Shanghai organization.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned Narendra Modi not visiting Astana at this time. But it's quite confusing because on one hand he's not going there, but then on the other he will pay a visit to Moscow later this month. So why not meet Putin in Kazakhstan if right now with the Chinese representatives as well?
I'm not sure. The official explanation seems to be that the Indian parliament, after the huge elections they had, is organizing itself right now, and the prime minister needs to do things there. Of course, one could think that meeting Putin too much would be too much for the balancing act, where the Indian Prime Minister wants to also have a good relationship with the West. And of course, he has more tensions with China than with Russia. With China, many Indian military establishment people see China as their biggest military threat. So maybe the presence of China in Astana in this meeting plays a role. I haven't seen comments on that, but now since you mentioned, it's possible.
Mm-hmm. That would be understandable. Now, Vladimir Putin is also to meet the president of Kazakhstan, host of this year's summit. Now, how do you rate the relations between those two? Because, they had some harsh moments during past few years.
Yes, to be honest, I don't have the details on the Kazakhstani government's attitudes. There's been this geopolitical game that we have to take into account in when assessing this meeting, that it's not only about China and Russia against the West, but it's also between China and Russia, and especially in countries like Kazakhstan. And my general take is that the tide in those Central Asian republics like Kazakhstan has been to perhaps consider a good relationship with China more important than the previously very strong relationship being part of the Soviet Union with Russia has been waning a little bit, but I cannot understand all the details at play there.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, my next question, because Belarus is now participating in the summit as for the first time as a full member of SCO. And I'm wondering whether it's only to counter the growing influence of China in the organization, by Russia, of course.
It's possible for Russia. On the one hand, it's important to show in the meetings where Putin attends, also because there's this international criminal court search warrant on him, and for other reasons that there are allies from many parts participating, and he's not an outcast in world politics. So because of that, he has a certain incentive to have as many countries as possible participating in things where he participates. And as you correctly mentioned, since Belarus seems to be closer to Russia than China, it could be that in the internal power dynamics of SCO, bringing Belarus in is something that gives a little bit more power momentum to Russian positions there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now the Russian leader will be talking with one of the leaders of one of NATO member states, namely Recep Tayyip Erdogan. What should we expect of these talks?
I'm not sure. Erdogan has been wanting to play some kind of mediating role, so it's possible they will talk about Ukraine, because Turkey has been offering itself as a possible mediating country in Russia-Ukraine war. So I guess that will be brought up. And of course, more generally, since the event takes place in Central Asia, where there are many also countries and that have populations that are ethnically related to Turkey and linguistically and all that. So Turkey sees that region in some sense as also its sort of related, if not home terrain at least, something where it also for cultural reasons should play a role, apart from China and Russia. So I'm sure then the sort of relationships between Russia and Turkey on what kinds of power issues they might have between themselves in the Central Asian republics will come up. But I guess for world politics, the possible talk on Ukraine is the most relevant one.
Mm-hmm. So that explains Erdogan's presence at the summit. And how to explain Antonio Guterres' presence there?
Well, in some sense, it could be politically complicated for him to visit Putin in Moscow. So this might be a possibility for him to have at least some eye-to-eye contact with Putin. And there's been this talk about whether they will have a separate bilateral meeting during the event. Right now, it seems Vladimir Putin's press secretary, Peskov, has confirmed that there will be a side meeting, perhaps an hour or so, with Erdogan, but no such side meeting has been officially organized with UN Secretary General Guterres. But then again, Putin's press secretary stated that it's possible and perhaps even likely that they will have, in any case, UN Secretary General and Putin will have some conversations there. It remains to be seen, but it might be important for Guterres, might see it as important to talk with Putin there as well.
Mm-hmm. But again, it shows that Russian officials are not taking the UN seriously. Now, lastly, to sum up, what should we expect from this summit? Will there be any breakthrough, maybe concerning the situation in Ukraine?
Hard to see any major breakthroughs. Of course, in theory, like President of my country, Alexander Stubb, repeated his comment he made already earlier that President Xi could end the war in Ukraine with one phone call. He came up with this slogan or this idea a couple of weeks ago, President Stubb of Finland, and he was repeating it, and I saw it got some media attention. It was like a petition to President Xi. I don't see that happening now. But of course, in theory, the way China approaches Russia's war in Ukraine is a big factor in creating the conditions for Russia to continue its war of aggression. So surely that's one big issue there. Of course, a little bit like the meeting in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. Now we have mostly countries from one side of the conflict or siding with one of the sides. And so therefore it's of course nothing close to anything we could call peace talks or anything like that, nor was there Swiss meeting a couple of weeks ago where you didn't have China or Russia or some of the other countries participating here. So I wouldn't expect any major breakthroughs regarding Ukraine in this meeting.
Let's give them a chance. They still have one day to go. Teivo Teivainen, a world politics professor from the University of Helsinki, was our guest today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.